Welcome to Apropos. Well, the death toll has risen to at least 492 following a day of Israeli bombardment in Lebanon. The dead include 35 children. The airstrikes have left more than 1,600 people wounded as residents in southern and eastern parts of the country are urged to evacuate ahead of a widening offensive against Hezbollah. Thousands of people are trying to make their way north. In a recorded message to Lebanese civilians, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu urged people to get out of harm's way. Siobhan Silk has the latest.
Schools in targeted areas were closed to protect the pupils. Now some in safer zones are opening their doors to the thousands of civilians fleeing southern Lebanon as Israel warns of more strikes to come.
We're part of the minority who managed to leave, but there are still many, many others in the south, including my siblings and their families. God willing, I hope they'll make it out.
A constant stream of people is heading northwards to seek shelter, like these residents of Sidon, 40 kilometres south of Beirut. They're packing as many people as they can into any available vehicle to make the slow journey on jammed roads. The fear of an escalating conflict has been brewing for the past year, during which there have been near daily exchanges of fire on the Lebanon-Israel border. But now Hezbollah is aiming rockets further into Israel, while Israeli strikes have hit the Lebanese capital. On Monday alone, Israel hit hundreds of targets across a wide area, the most intense and deadliest day of bombardments yet. With both sides vowing to retaliate against the other's actions, some Lebanese people believe all-out war is inevitable and feel powerless.
I say this is the beginning of the war, definitely the beginning of a war. May God guide us. If they want war, what can we do? It was imposed on us, we can't do anything, but we hope for no war.
But the government of Lebanon is already calling it a war, an Israeli war of extermination aimed at levelling Lebanese villages and towns.
To discuss, we're joined now by Mesrob Kazmedji, a teaching fellow at the Department of Politics and International Studies at SOAS University of London. Thank you so much for being with us on the programme this evening. Mesrob, what exactly is Israel trying to achieve by scaling up these attacks on Lebanon? Nearly 500 people dead in one day alone.
Well, Israel has said that it is aiming to stop the missiles coming in from southern Lebanon into northern Israel in order to allow them to resettle the Israelis in the north back, who have been forced to leave their home, around about 80,000 to 100,000 people since the beginning of the conflict in Gaza in October. But in order to do so, they are going to need to push Hezbollah back to across the Litani River in Lebanon, which is not going to be easy for them, which might require a land invasion. And if so, it's going to be, they're going to be met with stiff resistance by Hezbollah, which is already deployed in the area.
Yeah, because Hezbollah's leader, he's dared Israel to invade southern Lebanon. Will Israel invade, though? Where would that lead? Does it even have the capacity to do so, given the situation in Gaza and also in the West Bank?
This is an interesting question. We don't really know. Israel may think that they have the capability to do so. Have they overestimated their capabilities? Only time will tell. Hezbollah seems to think that they have the ability to withstand any Israeli assault, as they have done in 2006. But again, have they misjudged their capabilities vis-a-vis Israel? Only time will tell. But what is for sure is that they will enact a heavy cost for any Israeli soldiers trying to get into Lebanon. Hezbollah is a guerrilla organization. They're a complex sub-state actor with a social wing, a political wing, and a paramilitary wing. But all things together, they are a resistance organization. And they follow a kind of guerrilla warfare style or modus operandi, which means that their units can operate, once they are deployed and in position, can operate independently of one another. They don't necessarily require the same level of logistics and communication that a conventional armed forces would require. On top of that, they have specialized forces, which include sniper units, missile artillery crews, demolition experts, which have all been trained for years and are ready to to fulfill their mission if need be. Likewise, Hezbollah would be able to retaliate with missiles deep into Israel. In 2006, they already showed that they could fire missiles far deeper than anybody ever expected into Israel. Now we know that they have the capability to strike at any target in Israel, from the north all the way down to the south, most southern city of Eilat. Likewise, today the missiles have, on top of a greater range, also a greater yield. We're not talking about rockets that can destroy a car. We're talking about missiles which can destroy an entire building. And finally, these are now guided missile systems, which means that not only can they hit any part of Israel, but they can hit strategic targets in Israel, military, but also critical civilian infrastructure, such as roads and airfields and for example, bridges. These kinds of strikes would come as part of a prolonged rocket barrage and potentially drone swarms, which could overwhelm the Israeli Iron Dome system and leave Israel open to some critical hits in its territory. So the conflict will enact a heavy toll not only for Lebanon but also for Israel. Of course, Israel is aware of this. However, one wonders whether the Israeli government is heeding the warnings of their military establishment, or if they are have been overtaken by the kind of religious zeal and ideological extremism which seems to be present within the coalition or Netanyahu's coalition government, which may be forcing it for political calculations to escalate this conflict in Lebanon because they think that they can win. But again, this remains to be seen, because they may not have learned their lessons from their initial invasion of Lebanon in 1982, which led to their withdrawal without any political concessions via Lebanon, not even recognizing Israel as a state in order for Israel to leave. So there could be a replay of this, or the 2006 war, where Israel was unable to achieve any of its military objectives in Lebanon, which at the time were to retrieve its 2 captured soldiers, stop missile attack into northern Israel, disarm and dismantle Hezbollah, and take a buffer zone to the Litani. These very extreme, ambitious goals were not met, and actually the Israelis they criticized their own military establishment for not coming up with realistic goals at the time. Now the goals are a little less. They want the buffer zone to the Litani, they want the rocket strikes to end, and they want to end Hezbollah's presence in the south, but they're not talking about total disarmament. Even then, these goals may prove to be a step too far for them.
And Mesrour, we're nearly a year into the war in Gaza. You've described Hezbollah's capabilities there, but how do they compare to Hamas?
Hezbollah is much more powerful than Hamas, particularly because you have to consider that Hamas is operating in Gaza, which is about 372 kilometers squared. Lebanon is 10,452 kilometers. And whereas Gaza is a kind of slope to a beach, Lebanon is a mountainous territory. And these mountains are ideally suited to guerrilla warfare. So they're full of tunnels, like in Gaza, but I would imagine even more sophisticated tunnels in Lebanon, and they are far better armed than Hamas, with far greater number of missiles, and I also suspect a higher quality of missiles. So it would be much harder for Israel to even enter Lebanon, let alone to maintain an occupation. Remember, as a guerrilla force, Hezbollah only needs to survive this conflict in order to claim victory. In 2006, they claimed a divine victory for Israel not being able to achieve its goals in Lebanon. These kind of conflicts are not graded by how many people die on either side. Israel always has less casualties than its opponents, but that does not necessarily mean that it has won the war. It's important to realize that groups like Hezbollah, it's not a country, it's a sub-state actor. So it has different interests to countries or different properties to states. As a sub-state actor, its primary goal is to survive. Survival for a sub-state actor is measured by growth, both recruitment, but also material. And in order to achieve said growth, they need to stay politically relevant. They have given themselves the self-designated role as a Islamic resistance organization, which is designed to protect Lebanon, liberate Lebanon, protect Lebanon, and also to support the liberation of Palestine. If Israel attacks Lebanon as it is doing, it gives Hezbollah a chance to retaliate. These retaliations allow it to perform its self-designated role as a resistance organization, which allows for greater mobilization and recruitment, and also for it to extract more financial support from Iran or Tehran.
Well, speaking of Tehran, it's accusing Israel of seeking a wider regional war here. The question was put to people in Lebanon in that report we saw a little bit earlier, is an all-out war at this stage inevitable?
Well, I don't know about inevitable, but Iran is right to point out that, Israel is already fighting in Gaza. They are already conducting counter-terrorist or search and destroy operations in the West Bank. If the war with Lebanon escalates, that's already a three-front war. There is the potential for a conflict to also break out on the Golan front, forcing Israel into a four-way war. In the Golan, you could expect to see groups from the range of the axis of resistance, from Iraqi sub-state actors, but also even groups as far off of Afghanistan and Pakistan, which are coming to support, in this case, the axis of resistance in the front in the Golan. So there is the chance. And if America gets involved, Iran could get involved, and we would see not just the four-front war in Israel, but a region-wide war of attrition, which could be a very long and protracted war, and that would cost everyone dearly. It would end up to be an existential fight for Israel's existence, actually, and this is something that Netanyahu himself is highlighting.
Mesrab, thank you so much for your time on the programme. That's Mesrab Kazemijan, Teaching Fellow at the Department of Politics and International Studies at SOAS University of London. Well, that is it from us for now. Up next, it's Eye on Africa.